Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today is a fun and exciting video because we're talking about mindset. Mindset is such a huge part of golf and life in general, and especially for women. So we're gonna have a fun one today. I have a super special guest for you guys at the end of today's video. You guys get to see the insight into the world #1 women's long drive champion 2023, Monica Lieving. She's gonna join us for today's video and give her take on mindset. Both of us are super passionate about mindset and how important it is, so you're gonna get both of us today, which is really exciting. We are both super passionate about the women's side of golf. We really want to create a lot more content tailored towards the women's side of golf. It is so important that we have a community of female golfers here. Without further ado, let's get into it. Also, I know that there's a lot of men who watch my channel, and I'm so appreciative of you guys here, but definitely share this video with the women in your lives, your daughters, your wives, your sisters. We really need to spread the word about this and get all of us to feeling better in our mindset through golf and life. So make sure you share it with all the ladies in your lives, please. Thank you. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about the questions that I asked Dr. Raymond Pryor on our podcast. I have a podcast with my dad and my boyfriend called Golf's Perfect Imperfections, and that is with Golf WRX Radio. And recently we had Dr. Raymond Pryor on the show. He is a sports psychologist and works with a lot of LPGA and PGA Tour players, and so I was very curious to pick his brain about certain things. He's very well versed in how the human brain works and how it's wired, so it was a really fun conversation that we had with him. This applies for everybody, but for women in particular, because of our biological inevitabilities with our hormone shifts throughout our cycles. A big question that I had for him was, how do you get over the mental slumps? How do you get out of those holes that sometimes we get caught into? And as women, how do we get over the biological inevitability that when we're in that kind of slump and then we're also in a not so great hormonal shift throughout our cycles, how the heck do we get out of that? Because it's happened to me in competition before and it's not great. I've had like tough days where I'm feeling fine and I can kind of pull myself out of it really quick, but on days when I'm closer to my period, it's really difficult for me to do so, and I know a lot of you guys experience that as well. So that was a huge question that I had for him in terms of like, how do you manage this? A huge thing is awareness. Awareness of where you're at in your cycle, what's going on, what are your patterns, kind of tracking all of that stuff to begin with so that you have that full awareness of what your body goes through every month and how to better navigate it. So a huge thing for me is the Aura Ring. This helps me track exactly where I'm at. This also syncs up to my Natural Cycles app. And so it takes your temperature every night and it gives you a way better prediction of where you're at in your cycle. And it gives you that educational feedback that we really need to understand kind of where we're at and what's going on, and it's normal. It's okay, like we all go through it kind of thing. So this is a huge part of awareness for me. I can take a look at my app, see exactly where I'm at. I know how I'm feeling, and that helps me better prepare and kind of anticipate how to navigate all of those tough situations that sometimes we face. So when you can really anticipate what's going on because you have the awareness of where you're at, this kind of allows you to really navigate through these tough emotions and kind of hormonal shifts with more grace towards yourself, a little bit more patience with yourself, instead of wishing that it wasn't happening in the first place, because let's face it, it's gonna happen whether we want it to or not. So if we can learn how to kind of work with ourselves and not against ourselves, that is like a huge step in the right direction. The next part of this is acceptance. So acceptance is a huge part in kind of having the freedom to navigate this kind of stuff. So if you can fully accept that, hey, I'm not feeling great and that's just the way it is, then you'll have a way easier time to navigate through all of these like ups and downs, and not even ups and downs because of your cycle, but ups and downs just because maybe you're not doing great on the golf course, or maybe you're having a tough day at work, or whatever it is, right? This is why I love golf and athletics, is because athletics and golf, it's all a game of life. And I really feel like this mindset that Dr. Raymond Pryor has towards all of these things is just so intertwined with both athletics and life in general. So that's why this conversation really hit home with me and allowed me to see things in a different perspective. which has been so awesome. And I can't wait to bring that into my next season and just like into life in general. So something in the conversation that goes hand in hand with this awareness and acceptance piece is these concepts of optimistic explanatory style versus a pessimistic explanatory style. Now, this is so huge. Your optimistic explanatory style is going to be temporary and non-personal. Now, it doesn't mean that it sugarcoats anything, but it allows you to see things more from the truthful side of things. So inevitably, when we fail or experience some negative emotions, that's going to stay with us for a little bit of time, but it doesn't take nearly as much of an emotional toll than we think it would. And obviously, when we fail, we're looking to improve on some things and adapt and make adjustments. Obviously, you're going to evaluate the situation honestly and problem solve, but it's never going to be as widespread of a negative impact than it may seem to be. Now, your pessimistic explanatory style is very different. It feels permanent and pervasive and a lot more personal than it actually needs to be. And it's a lot more long-term and widespread. So for example, when I was in Kingsport, Tennessee, I had my first OB set ever in long drive, and pair that with a not so great emotional state to start with and hormonal state to start with. And that was just a recipe for disaster for me. So I went straight into a pessimistic explanatory style without even realizing it because I had no idea what these two things were until just like a month ago. When you get into a pessimistic explanatory style in that kind of situation, my first thing was, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I had an OB set. Oh, I'm crap. How am I going to get back? I'm not good enough to win a set to be able to make up the points that I lost with the OB set. So my mind just went out of control in a way. When you start talking to yourself like that, it can seem like a much more long-term permanent problem than it just being an OB set and everybody's gone through it, and not understanding that that can be a really positive learning experience. So your emotional response to that is going to be a lot heavier, and it's going to take you a lot longer to move forward from it. So this is where awareness comes back into play. It's like, well, if you experience failure or something negative, can you catch yourself in that moment, be aware of the situation, and what explanatory style are you going to give yourself? Are you going to give yourself an optimistic explanatory style where things aren't as bad as they may seem, or are you going to be pessimistic and let it completely override your whole day? As women, when we're in these hormonal shifts, it can be very easy to shift into that pessimistic explanatory style because we just simply don't feel good. So it's like instantaneous, okay, we're oh, woe is me kind of thing. So if we can catch ourselves in those moments and be like, hey, no, we're okay, have that acceptance of what's going on, then we can better manage and navigate through all of those like difficult feelings and emotions. So then in turn, when things don't necessarily go our way, we can more accurately and objectively kind of evaluate performance and kind of take steps in the right direction to improve and get better, rather than making a bunch of inaccurate conclusions that are going to in turn affect our confidence long term. Really, at the end of the day, all we have control over is the way that we react to failure and uncomfortable situations and emotions and feelings. So the whole premise of this awareness and acceptance and explanatory styles that we give ourselves is you kind of have to think about it in the way of training for it in the way that you would train physically. So you have to do the work ahead of time. This is not something that just all of a sudden like pops into your head and you're like, okay, I can do this, and I can tell between the optimistic explanatory style and the pessimistic one, and I'm good to go. Like, this is something that you have to like consciously be aware of and practice every day. That's something that honestly has just like lifted a weight off of my shoulders, because now I know how to handle these situations when they come up, because inevitably they are going to come up. That's just the way life is. Whether you're a woman or a man, like, we are all going to experience failure. We're all going to experience negative emotions and feelings. And we need to figure out ways to better navigate these situations with a little bit more grace and patience toward ourselves. I've always been very hard on myself. I don't talk to myself very nicely. And that's something that I've done for years and years and years growing up playing soccer. And so it's a very, bad habit and it's a very difficult habit to get out of. And so having this conversation with Dr. Raymond Pryor has just been like a breath of fresh air because, you know, he explains it in such an easy way to understand. And it is easy things that you can implement into your life, but you have to be conscious of them, you have to be aware of them, and you have to be willing to do the work up front. By doing this work up front, you can then front load and anticipate all of these little things. Like, I've been in that situation before, I know how to handle it now. I'm feeling like this, I know how that feels, so now I can move into a better direction and handle it a different way and navigate it in a more positive way. So this applies to everybody, but especially us women, because it's with those hormonal shifts that we experience throughout our cycles every freaking month, it, like, our lives revolve around it. We've never been taught, and I have never been taught how to navigate through it. And, you know, nobody's ever told us this is normal, this is how your bodies work. It's so crazy to me that I'm 28 years old and I'm now only figuring out in the past year how to freaking navigate my body as a woman and my emotions and my hormones. And for so long, we think that we're just like a basket case where, no, this is all normal stuff that we go through, but now we have the tools to, you know, handle it in a more positive way without being so hard on ourselves and being so negative. And I don't know, I just like, this is so huge, you guys. Like, mindset, this is why I'm so passionate about mindset, and this is why both Monica and I are so passionate about mindset, especially for the women's side of golf and the women's side of life, because it's not talked about enough. And if we can be kind of like this vessel to share with you guys and help you guys navigate towards certain things or through certain things, like, that's all that we want to do. We're both very passionate about this, and I've always been like a little bit afraid to share that kind of stuff through my content because it can be seen as like taboo, I guess, which is so silly. Like, this is just like our everyday reality, and more of us need to talk about it so that we can feel like we're not alone. That feeling of not being alone is so huge, and I see other creators, you know, going out of their comfort zones and talking about things that I've always wanted to hear from a fellow woman. And so if that means me stepping out of my comfort zone to help somebody out, then that's what I'm going to do. And that's exactly why I loved this conversation so much with Dr. Raymond Pryor, because he was so willing and upfront about how to handle these things as women. I'm very grateful that he took the time to talk to me about that and to us about that. With that, we just got to show up with our tools. Now we have the tools to move in the right direction and kind of have a more positive outlook on all of this stuff. And that's a really, really empowering feeling to have. You know, as women, we want to feel empowered, we want to feel capable. And so showing up with these tools that we now have is so huge. And you can tell on my face that I am so happy about this. And I'm so happy to share it with you guys because it's something that I wish I knew a lot sooner. And obviously moving forward, it's not always going to be sunshine and butterflies, you know, like everything is still going to be tough to an extent, but knowing that now I have the tools to better navigate through ups and downs and tough situations and failure, I feel so much better equipped. And it almost feels like I can dive headfirst even more into that kind of stuff because I know that now I have the tools to, you know, have the confidence and talk to myself nicer and have more patience with myself. And so that's a really awesome feeling to have. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this little segment of the video. We are going to have Monica on right now to talk to you guys about her favorite things around mindset. She is the world #1 long drive competitor on the women's side. So you definitely want to stay tuned and listen in real close because she has some gems to share. We had her on our podcast as well recently. And she is so intelligent, so bright, just a kind-hearted soul. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy the advice and chat that she has to have with you. So I will see you soon.
Hello friends, my name is Monica Lieving and I am a World Long Drive competitor and I am the 2023 Women's World Long Drive Champion. So I'm here today to talk to you about pretty much my mindset journey throughout my experience with golf. Savannah asked me to record this video and kind of give some pointers and feedback on what has worked for me in regards to mindset on my journey. So I'm just going to give you a couple things that have worked for me. So let's get started. Just to get us started, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background. So I started playing golf when I was about 12 years old. I went on to play in high school and then I played Division I college golf at Arkansas State University. So that is pretty much, where I learned a lot about mindset and what works for me. And then after college is when I got involved in long drive most recently. And, my mindset has really changed from junior golf to being a competitor in World Long Drive and now a World Long Drive champion. I think that I have had to experience, the high highs and the low lows in order to be at the place that I am now. And I think that that is a super important piece to remember when I do kind of tell you, the things that work for me. I would say one of the number one things that has helped me grow with my mindset when it comes to golf is one, being kind to myself and knowing that I'm not going to get to where I want to be overnight. I think that I tend to be a fairly quick learner and I'm kind of a perfectionist. So sometimes I notice that I'm really, really hard on myself and I expect myself to have this perfect mindset every single day. And I think that something that is really important to remember and the thought process that has helped me is that you're not going to be your best every day. My best today might look like me doing a hour-long workout and going and hitting 100 balls to work on some technique in my swing. But other days, my best version of myself might be me not even having a workout and just having a rest day and frankly sitting on my couch and kind of relaxing and rejuvenating myself. So I think it's important to remember that in order to get to the finish line, if you will, and reach our goals, it's going to look like this. There's going to be peaks and there's going to be valleys, and there's not going to just be highs all the time, and there's not going to be lows all the time. So I think that really embracing the lows when they come and appreciating the highs when they come has been super, super positive for me. So even on, the events that I haven't won and I haven't really performed my best, I try to find something that I can learn and improve on even when I'm not doing my best. Because obviously I won the World Long Drive Championships this year, but I actually still have a ton of things and ton of room for improvement that I noticed in myself from that competition. And I think that that is a huge thing when it comes to progressing. It's about finding little increments as we go and then eventually compounding all of those to get our grand scheme of a picture. Another thing that has helped me a lot is reframing how I talk to myself. I will be the first to admit that I still struggle with this every single day. It takes a really conscious effort for me to really incorporate this in my day-to-day life. Being positive and being kind to ourselves is super, super hard, and I will be the first to admit that. I notice how often I have negative thoughts about myself. My brain, will jump to the worst case scenario almost all the time in my brain. And so it takes a lot of time to really rewire our brain to start thinking differently. And that's kind of my whole point, is nothing is going to happen overnight. And so I think that if I were to be starting from the beginning and I was looking for advice on how to begin my journey to this, positive, healthy mindset, especially with sports, it would be just start with one thing right now. Maybe it's when you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror and you say positive affirmations. I know it sounds really, cheesy and kind of weird and very, predictable for me to say, but it does work. This whole year, I didn't do it every day, but I would consistently wake up and I would look in the mirror and I would say, I'm a World Long Drive champion. I'm a World Long Drive champion. And the day that I woke up, the day of the finals, I said this in the mirror to myself over and over again, and I repeated it in my head the entire time that I was competing. And it made a huge difference, and one, on how I carry myself, and two, how I felt about myself that day. So being positive and how we talk to ourselves is probably the number one thing that can affect our results. And even if you don't believe it yet, keep saying it, and that is the most important piece. It can take us a long time to truly believe that we are these things that we're saying we are, but the more you say it and the more that you rewire your brain to thinking, yes, that's right, I am the best, I am incredible, I can do this, your brain is eventually going to believe itself, and you'll be so impressed with the things that you accomplish. Another tip that I have that I think is really important for tracking our mindset progress is even keeping a journal. So not everybody likes writing, and you don't have to do this in a really, detailed, extreme way. But even if you're keeping, some notes in your iPhone, in the Notes app, just to kind of track how you're feeling, what you feel in certain situations, has been really helpful for me. I do have a big journal and it's not just golf related stuff that I write about in there. I write about everything in my life, and I think that that's important to remember. Is when we compete in sports, yes, it's important to track our thoughts around what we're thinking when we're competing and what we're thinking when we're practicing and working out. But being an athlete and being a healthy adult and having a healthy mindset in our sport does bleed into our personal lives. And I really think something I worked on a lot was making myself focus on becoming a better individual as a whole and not just related to my sport. Because the reality is, for me, if I feel good about myself outside of golf, it's going to be easier for me to feel better about myself in golf. And journaling has really helped that. Sometimes when we are feeling stuck or we feel like we can't put into words how we're feeling, it can be really, therapeutic to write those feelings down. And it sounds like a very therapy-based thing to do, and it is. And that's because it works, and it works a lot for me. And I find that, writing down how I'm feeling and kind of just putting it on paper and being like, okay, this is how I feel, and really sitting in that feeling has really, really helped me. When I was younger, I read a lot of mindset books, and I had a lot of coaches that said to me, basically suck it up and keep on going. And sure, that helped me perform at a high level, but I was in a constant state of fight or flight, and my nervous system was just overloaded, and I couldn't handle it. And so I think that, when we feel overloaded like that and we don't really sit in how we're feeling and really understanding how we're feeling, it makes those feelings linger longer. So I would say this piece of advice would be around feeling your emotions. If you feel anxious, if you feel nervous, if you feel, not confident in yourself, don't beat yourself up for it. I always say that there's the feeling. So let's say lack of confidence. So if I'm feeling a lack of confidence, I already have that lack of confidence. I'm already experiencing that emotion. And then on top of that, I'm beating myself up for not having confidence. Why don't I have confidence? I thought I was doing better. I've done all these things to have more confidence. So in that situation, you're fighting two different battles. So if you can get past the part where you're beating yourself up for feeling that way, you then can focus on really fixing the root issue, which is the initial lack of confidence. So I think that in the grand scheme of things, my point here is really sit in your emotions. If you have to write those down and you don't even talk to anyone about it, that's okay. But finding a therapeutic way for you to sit and really feel those emotions and work through them is one of the most life-changing things that I have ever done for myself. I'm a very emotionally driven person, and I thought that I was feeling my emotions, but I realized I wasn't. I was acknowledging that they were there, and then I was trying to move past them as quickly as I could because I acknowledged it wasn't a good emotion. Creating a good mindset and becoming someone who is at the top level of your sport or whatever it is that you're trying to go after, you're going to be uncomfortable. Very cliche, be uncomfortable, be comfortable being uncomfortable. But it's so true, because getting to the best version of ourselves isn't going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would be happy with themselves all the time and everybody would be achieving all of their goals. It's not an easy thing to do. So taking these steps to take the slow way there and really build a foundation for yourself is going to be the best thing you could do. Because at the end of the day, if you try to skip the hard part, you're going to get to that finish line and realize that you didn't build a strong foundation to stay where you are at the top. So these are my pieces of advice. I hope you find it beneficial. Maybe it's something that you didn't really think about, and maybe it is already. This is just what works for me. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. These are just things that have helped me really grow as an individual person and has helped me, in my athletic career. So I really hope that this helps, and hopefully you got a couple nuggets from this that you think could be really beneficial in your own life. And yeah, feel free to follow me on all my social medias. I'm sure Savannah will drop those in here. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you, Savannah, for having me on, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that video today about mindset. We had so much fun filming this and collaborating on this together. It was such a nice feeling to be able to talk to you guys openly about this kind of stuff, both for the men and for the women's side of it, but particularly the ladies, because we're so passionate about helping you guys out and growing together as a community. We need that girl power in the golf community, and that's really what we want to do and help change and create a safe space for all of the women in golf, but all of you guys who are passionate about wellness and health and lifestyle. That's just really what we wanted to share with you guys. So I hope that you enjoyed again, and I will see you all in my next video.